Welcome to Contractor Cuts, where we cover the good, the bad, and the ugly of growing a successful contracting company.
Welcome to Contractor Cuts. My name is Turner.
I'm Jared Flowe.
Thank you for joining us again. So this podcast is all about how to implement change without disrupting your business.
Yeah.
When we start coaching guys, when we come into companies and see, you had a problem here, here's an issue, why are you doing it this way? There's all sorts of change that needs to be implemented. That's the whole reason you're getting a coach, right?
Yeah.
What am I doing wrong? How can I do it better? How do you all do it to duplicate and grow? What processes work for me today that won't work for me when I start making hires? All of that stuff is change that has to be implemented into your company.
Yeah.
And if you do it the wrong way, it's going to go backwards, right?
Yeah.
The whole goal of implementing change is to get efficient. And when it's done wrong, it's inefficient. And most of the time, guys are like, this doesn't work. I'm just going to go back the way I was doing.
Well, and implementing change can be adding something or removing something.
Yep.
Right? There are times that we've come into companies and as we've processed through the realization of like, we need to let a couple people go because they're in positions or they're not, and that change can be difficult and cause some major disruption in your company, to your clients, to your revenue, all of that stuff, or implementing new things that you don't have in play that you need to put into play for the growth of your business.
That's right. So there's a list of stuff that we'd help people implement. How they do estimates, how they do desk estimates, how they do invoicing, how do they get their labor a work order, or how do they tell their labor what they need to get done on the job?
Changing from I pay everybody hourly to bulk payments.
Well, one of the biggest changes we've implemented in some companies, and again, this is not every company, but the companies that we've identified when they're solely general contractor, more project management companies, is you don't need labor on staff. So let's shift all of the current labor from W-2 to 1099, and let's help them set up their companies. And that is a very disruptive and scary change that we've helped guys implement and done the right way. The guys that are killing it as your labor make more money, and the guys that are taking advantage of you go away. But besides the point of that, they're doing that the wrong way, your company will crash, right? And so there's a lot of different things that we've helped implement and shown, okay, before we do it, this is what you got to do. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I think what we're going to focus on is implementing a software into your company.
And really the reason for that is everybody that we work with, alliance members and all implement software into their company because it's kind of the backbone of our alliance coaching and development. Yeah. So we've done that with every single person that's come into our business. So that's the one we're the most familiar with.
And it's no secret that we have ProServe 360, which is our construction management software. And the reason that we're also talking about this is not just self-promotion,
right?
But the whole reason we have this software and we push guys into a software like ours, if not ours, is this is the backbone of how your processes can duplicate, right? Software isn't just to organize. It's not a filing cabinet for you. It will do that. But the whole reason that we try to push guys so hard on that is what works in your brain can't be transferred to someone else. So if we have written processes and how things go, a software automates those processes. And so what we do is combine, and that's why we have ProServe Alliance alongside of 360, the software is not only do you need a software, if you need help changing and molding your processes to duplicate by using the software, let us help you get efficient.
That's right.
So
that's right.
With that being said, implementation of software can be the most disruptive thing that you can do in your 100%. Company.
It can take a long time.
Yep. And so by focusing on that on this podcast, if you can implement the software, you can implement really any change.
That's right.
Right. And all change is, when we're trying to get efficient and implement change, is changing your processes and how you do things. And we always use the word processes. It's really, how do I do things? How am I going to pay guys? How am I going to, and so that's the change that we're talking about.
That when this happens, this is how I'm going to operate. And that's for me as the owner, but as 3, 4, 5 different employees, they also adhere to that, right? So it's the same replicatable process. Every time I run up against this issue or deal with this situation, this is the way that I operate. So there's no confusion, there's clarity.
And another good example of change that is outside of processes is, let's say I'm a construction company. We're going to start a cabinet company on the side. Great. That's a huge change in how things are going to operate. That, again, that's changing your processes, but it's also a whole different venture that, if done wrong, you're going to kill your construction company or at least really, really harm it.
Yeah.
So any sort of change from the status quo needs to be ran the way that we're about to discuss it in this podcast.
Well, and normally what happens, being entrepreneurs that mainly run, companies like this, you see opportunity or something that could be of a benefit, and you go, yes, ready, fire, aim.
Yep.
Right? And what happens, because you're like, oh, dude, if we get this in, it's going to have these benefits and these effects, and it's going to be great, and you don't take the time to prep and be ready for it, and you try to implement it in the company, you hit stumbling blocks here or there, and inevitably you end up saying, that doesn't work, we're going back to the way we used to.
Well, and why guys end up where you're talking about and trying to implement change and failing on it all starts, if you rewind the clock, to how they started the company. 99% of us in construction who own any sort of construction company started by doing, right? And so when I'm out there running, every process that I started building in this company was by need and reaction, and I tried 3 things, and this third thing worked, so I'm going to stick with that, right? So how do I do estimates? Well, they text my phone, and then I do this, so that's kind of how I do it.
Yeah.
And so as you grow, it's almost, anti-intuitive. What is it called?
Anti-intuitive.
No, it's not intuitive.
Yeah.
Because the way that you have to shift it to where when I'm starting my company, I do it this way. Now that I want to really grow to the next level, I have to do the opposite way.
Right.
The way that I have been doing it has the die.
Yeah, it's not going to work that way moving forward. And I think, when you start a business like that, you're relying on yourself. You trust yourself.
Yeah.
And no matter what, you're trying to make the best decisions possible, but no matter what decision you make, you've got the grind and gumption that you're going to be able to handle it and make it happen.
Counterintuitive.
Right? Counter, and there it is. Found it.
Yeah, so the implementing change is counterintuitive to the way that you were doing change in the beginning of your company.
Correct.
And so the way that you do change originally is I fly by the seat of my pants. I just do what works best and alter how I'm doing things by what's working, what's not working. And that's a great way to start a company. But if you want to duplicate and grow the company, you can't do it that way, especially when you've got employees or you've got subs, you've got clients already in place doing it a certain way. Yeah. So the implementation of making change all starts with planning.
Yeah, and we've said many times before, and we say this to everybody that comes into the Alliance program, if you want to build your company around you, and you are the cog that everything runs out of, that's fine, and you can do that, but there's a cap to the ability.
That's right.
Right? If you want to build something that's actually bigger than yourself, the way that you used to do things has to change.
Yeah.
And there's a process to that, and there's a way to do that. So let's get into, instead of ready, fire, aim, how do we go about implementing a software and some major change into your company with the least amount of disruption?
So let's use software as an example throughout this podcast because that's the easiest for us to, and the largest change that companies are going to have. So with starting and saying, hey, I think we need to get on a software, or hey, I'm on Builder Trend or some other software that doesn't work for what we're doing. It's too big, it's too expensive. I want to change to a different one, but I'm already set up in it, and my processes are kind of built around the way it's set up. Either way, however you're doing it, to start a new software is not, hey, I want a new software, I'm going to sign up, and on Monday we're going to start running everything through the new software.
Yeah.
Because your processes that you have set up, you don't understand, you don't know that it actually is built around the way you're doing things, but implementing a software or changing from one to the other means the processes have to change.
Well, you can't do, we'll just figure it out when we get there.
Yep.
Because there are ripple effect impacts of that's going to affect your clients, going to affect your subcontractors, going to affect your employees, and you have to know and understand that impact and how to mitigate that.
Yeah, and luckily we've kind of seen it a ton by helping people implement ProServe 360 into their company. So we are a great resource, and we'll do a lot of free stuff for companies in terms of helping them understand the ripple effect that's happening.
Yeah.
So step one though with any change is, this is the new way I want to do it. Is it the most efficient? Is it the most effective? and why do I want to change this?
Does it work in the way that my current processes?
Yeah.
Or do I need to amend those or add new ones?
And so if this is a process that I want to implement the software, my first question to myself is, what's going to be affected by this? What is the ripple effect? And so that by itself, that question isn't answered in 30 minutes.
No.
That question is, I'm going to keep it in my head for the next week, 2 weeks, and start making note, oh, that's going to be different. Oh, this is going to be different. And so I'm identifying, all right, so if we implement software, I need to onboard my vendors and my crews and make sure I get all their information in. I have customer information. I have an open job. So what's going to happen to all that? So we have to make a game plan for that implementation. And this point of the process, if I have employees or subs or both, I am not discussing this change yet.
Correct.
I don't want opinions. I don't want people telling me how I should do it outside of a coach or the software company helping you understand what's going on.
Correct.
But I don't want to start confusing my employees and my labor on how things are going to go.
Don't let the people know that that this change is going to affect the most before you're ready to make the change.
As soon as you say, hey, we're changing the way we do X
just constantly
next month, they start coming back and say, well, what if we did this way? What if we did that? And am I doing it that way yet? Am I doing it this way yet? What are we doing? How are we doing that?
Yeah.
All of those questions flood in and cause confusion in your company. So number one, me, my business partner, my manager that's running things, we're going to sit down and start looking at, all right, what is this going to affect? What processes that we have are going to be affected by this change? And then I'm going to either add or edit or delete the processes that I have in place.
Correct.
Right? So if we're moving to a new software, and I used to do estimates by, you call me on the phone, I write on a yellow pad, I show up at your house, I start taking notes on my yellow pad, I then go to Excel and type up an estimate for you. If that's your your current process, well, what's going to be affected by switching to a software? Where my intake, when they call, I want to put them in this way. I'm going to write that down. I want to put them into the computer as soon as they call, so I have a card to remember and make notes on.
Yeah.
Next, I'm going to do it X, Y, and Z, right? And so you're walking through that process of implementation of this. These are the things that are going to be disrupted. How am I going to make them not disruptive?
Right.
How am I going to build processes around the new way and edit my current processes to where it's not a disruption, but an addition to what we're doing?
Well, and in this, a tangible example of how to do that, where when I've done that in different aspects of our company, I will, whatever the process or the timeline of this, that this new product or thing is going to affect, I'll go on my whiteboard and I'll literally put a timeline on the board and I'll think through every aspect of, okay, when I get a call from a client who's interested, okay, that's the very beginning. What's next? When this
you draw
happens,
a timeline of how a job operates.
Correct. Yeah. Of how a job operates, and go from the very, very beginning all the way to getting
Final
paid
invoice,
from the client and sending them an information of like, hey, will you give me a Google review?
Yep.
So that entire process, I'll go through and think through, and then I have some trigger points of, okay, with this new software, how will it affect that?
Yep.
And how will it affect that? And do I need, so an actual like visual in front of me so that I can remember? That helps me.
Yeah.
If I'm just sitting on a couch somewhere trying to think about all the things that it could possibly affect, I'm going to miss things. It helps me to put a visual on a board and actually write out a timeline.
Well, and if you come to Atlanta for one of our Fast Track to Success events, it's a one-day event that we host here in Atlanta quarterly, 2, 3, 4 times a year. If you go to our website and sign up for one of those, we lay out that project management process for you and how, if you were going to implement change, this is how you do it, and here are the spots. So you don't have to think through that stuff. We've got that thought through. And then we sit down with companies and say, okay, let's look at how you operate on this timeline, and let's show and figure out where the best spots to affect change within that happen. So you sit down, you look at that, you look at the change of what's going to happen. Again, going back to software, okay, I'm going to have to sign everybody up, I'm going to have to do this, I'm going to do this. And so what we want you to do is figure out what has the change to implement that software. Step 1. Step 2, we're going to pick a date in the future to be our launch date. That date is when we're going to flip the switch and everything's going to happen differently according to our new process.
I'm going to have full adherence across myself and the company to these new systems and processes.
That's right. So that flip date, the launch date that we have, even if it's not something as major as software, but let's say even a new process for how we're going to do invoicing. That launch date might be 2 weeks from Monday. That's fine, but I need time to write the process. Secondly, after writing the new processes and editing, the second thing I need to do is I need to master the processes.
Yeah.
If I don't have every answer that someone's going to ask me, then how can I train you and show you how to do it? I can't make up the rules as we're playing. If you go to play basketball and the guy's trying to make up the rules as you're playing, and it's like, oh, that's a 4-pointer. Well, why? Well, that's just the decision I made.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
You can't play the game.
It's inefficient and it falls apart. So for us, first, I'm planning and I'm identifying problems. Second, I'm going to be building the new processes around fixing those problems and making this super efficient. Then I am going to master those processes. So maybe if I've got employees, I'm going to do one estimate the new way. I'm going to try that out myself before I teach my employees, before I start doing things differently for everybody. I'm going to cherry pick that one job and do it differently. I'm going to invoice differently. Well, on this one job that we're starting, I'm going to try to invoice this one job differently. And if that goes well and my client engagement meeting in the front end, I talk about how we invoice, I get their feedback. They say, well, that doesn't work. And what about this? And they ask questions that I haven't thought through. It's really just testing it out. Right. And so going through that process by myself without implementing it company-wide
across the board,
is how I'm going to also secondarily identify the flaws in the new plan.
You're essentially beta testing it.
And so once I understand the new process, and if we go back to the software, I'm going to spend 2 to 3 weeks learning every nook and cranny of that software. I'm going to know how this works, how that works here, and I'm going to cross-reference the way the software works and my processes. Right? And our software is built around duplicating yourself and growing to the next level. So if your processes don't fit into how our software works, talk to us. We'll help you identify what's going wrong, because if they don't fit in, it means it's not duplicatable. So number one, identify. Number two, we're going to sit there and look and say, hey, what's all going to be the problem when we implement this?
Master it yourself.
Number three is master it yourself. You go into number four is training for your employees. Right? So now that I know, I'm going to train my employees, my crews, my office, whoever is around you. If you're a one-man show, your crews still need to be trained on what's going to be different. Now, this is the first time that I announce publicly inside of my company saying, hey, guys, we're going to have a training next Friday, because October 1st, right, whatever the date is, we are going to roll out these new processes. October 1st, we're going to be on a new software. So whatever is changing, I'm going to announce this is when it's going to change. This is when I'm going to train you. And this is what you need to do differently in your job to be successful. Sometimes it's rewriting job descriptions. Sometimes it's now your responsibility is changing to this, and I need buy-in from you to understand what I'm expecting out of you.
Well, and I need for my employees to understand that information of here are the new systems and processes that are going to be in place. After this date, our launch date, you're going to be held accountable to this new standard. So you need to understand it. If you've got any questions, I'm glad to help you. But you have to understand that, because we're going live on this date.
After October 1st, you're not allowed to say to me, oh, I didn't know that's how we did it. I will help you any way you need from today for the next month, whatever it is. I will do whatever is needed for you to understand this is the right way. Now, if you say one thing that first week and say, well, how do we do this? I understand that there's going to still be that sort of conversations happening, but it is your responsibility to learn this, and you will be held accountable for our processes that we're implementing and rolling out. So now that they're trained, now that I feel comfortable, they understand, the next step depends on what you're trying to change. If I'm switching over to the software, if I'm coming from a different software, it is, what do I do with my old jobs? What do I do with the new jobs? And so for us, it's always been, hey, if you're changing softwares, what we're going to do is identify the jobs that are going to be long-lasting. And I'm going to either transfer them over, or I'm going to say, hey, we're done with demo and framing. So I'm going to close that job out here. I'm going to take the rest of the estimate and rewrite in my new software. and I'm going to start a brand new job with you, a client, for the remainder of the work here.
Right.
That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is say, I'm just going to close these jobs out in software A, and any new job, any estimate that I'm doing starting today will be estimated and ran in the new software.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't have an old software and you're just coming from pen and paper to a software, it is, okay, any estimate I'm doing moving forward, I'm going to do in the software.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. It's going to be a slow rollout on that, and you're going to be able to really identify and be on top of it because you're not switching everything currently there.
Right.
You're just switching one job. The first estimate I'm doing this week, great. My next estimate I'm doing beginning of next week, great. I'm going to do it that way. So during that transition period, if you have employees, you are hawking every step of the process.
AKA micromanaging, making sure everybody is adhering.
For the first week, I want everyone writing estimates in the office.
Yeah.
I'm going to be standing over your shoulder, here to help, here to answer questions, making sure you're using the job item templates, right? In our software, we can pre-build job item templates to where I can show the guys, if you want paint, click this button. It will give you the full description, type in the quantity, and it's done.
Yeah.
Right? And that's all customizable. So helping them understand those nooks and crannies, because, again, like everything else we've talked about in all of our podcasts, your employees will only do as much work as you are putting in. So if I don't know the software myself, how can I expect my employee to learn and know the software?
Right.
They're taking their cue from me as the leader. So I'm going to know it. I'm going to coach them on it. Then I'm going to be an eagle eye for the first 2-3 weeks and micromanage every single person in that part of the process.
Well, and through that entire process, every one of those steps, and all the way through the end of the micromanaging and making sure that you got full adherence. The reason for all of that is because if you implement that, the way to create the least disruption or waves within your company is to have that transition happen as fast and efficient as possible. And if there are, I'll figure it out when we run into it. If I haven't thought through it, if I haven't trained my people, if they don't understand, if I'm not there in the first 2, 3, 4 weeks for them to ask the questions very quickly, it can drag out. And all of a sudden, you're still working on trying to get this fully implemented in your company 4-6 months later. And it will drag out and it will become too cumbersome to deal with. Right? You need to, that's why you draw that line in the sand. This is when we're making that transition and moving forward. And I think post all of that happening, another thing that I would really recommend is have open conversations. We made this transition a month ago, 3 months ago. Give me feedback. The people that are dealing with it on a daily basis, you've done your best to think through it from every angle and opportunity and create stopgaps to make it work as best you can. But you there were things you overlooked. There are things you didn't know or didn't realize. So get that feedback. That's how our CEA got to where it is. We knew we needed a system and process in place to be able to communicate expectations well, but we've left it open to communication and feedback from our people for years, and it's a live organism that is constantly being changed and updated to be more and more efficient.
That's right.
And do well. So I think post implementation of all of this stuff, being able to say what's working, what's not working, how can we make it
asking
even
your crews that, asking your clients that, like, hey, we're trying this new way of invoicing, we think this is better for both sides, including you. What is there anything you don't like about it? Is there, like, give me some feedback on it, because I want to make sure that your experience is great. Clients love that. You know, that's it, you feel like you're showing your cards, but you're not. They're like, oh, this guy's legit. He's transparent. He cares about my feedback. I'm seen. So get that feedback from all parties.
Well, if you do that for your employees, if an employee, you give you put the forum out there for them to give you feedback. You take that feedback and say, yeah, that's actually good, and that employee actually sees their feedback implemented into the way things are done. You talk about employee buy-in.
And doubling down on that, this employee feedback is a great way to see where they don't understand the new system.
Absolutely.
Right? So if someone says, well, it doesn't work for, I can't do estimates this way. Oh, well, that's not the way you're supposed to be doing them. Let me help you understand that better, right? So the feedback is either, I'm going to implement better systems, and that employee has helped build our company.
Or clarity.
Or they're getting clarity. Either way, it's a positive.
Yeah.
I think one thing to close is, if you look at this process that we just laid out, I got to identify and figure out what needs to change. I then need to see the ripple effect stuff, and then I need to train, and then I need to train, and then I need to roll out.
Yeah.
That process is a great viewpoint into why ProServe Alliance and our coaching is helpful, because coaching isn't just for guys that don't know how to do it.
Right.
Every single guy that's been successful with us would have been successful without us.
Yep.
If you ask them to a guy, email us, we'll give you their phone numbers. They will say, I could have done this. It would have taken me 6, 7, 8 years to get to where I'm at after 1 year, because I would have had to make all the small mistakes to understand the ripple effects.
Exactly.
So what we do as ProServe Alliance and our coaching side is saying, hey, this is the change that needs to be implemented that works. You don't have to try 7 different ways of doing it. We're going to show you the best way that it works. And a lot of times guys will say, well, what if we did it differently at this one spot? We'll say, that doesn't work because A, B, and C. But if you do end up going that way, this is what you got to look out for, right? And so we custom build your process. And then the next step is the ripple effect. We know the ripple effect because we've made those mistakes.
I felt a lot of them.
It's been almost 20 years of making those mistakes. So for us, if you're considering talking with us about coaching and rolling this out, we aren't a magic wand. This is the process that works. We got proof. Look at what we've done and grown. These are the ripple effects that's going to happen when we change your company over. This is exactly how you need to train and learn, and we will be the trainer for you to show you how to implement this.
Yeah.
This is how you are going to train your crews and your employees or your customers. This is the date you should launch it, right?
Yeah.
So it is a blueprint for doing this and implementing change is what we're giving you. We're not magical. We've really made all the mistakes and lost the hundreds of thousands of dollars in making those mistakes that we're giving contractors.
Yeah, well, and that's why we also have these fast track to success events.
Yeah.
Right? It's one day that gives you a good window into what is it that we're doing that helps fast track you to that success. We go through the 10-step project management. So if you're maybe not ready to commit to joining up with Alliance or making that phone call, but would be interested in dipping your toe in, go to our website, check out our event page, and find the most recent event coming up. Sign up and come in. Spend a day. Get the benefit of that window into some successful processes that we're going to spell out. And maybe it'll turn into something deeper for you.
My favorite part of what we do is that 1-on-1, 2-on-1, 3-on-1 times at these one-day events where we can help companies build and launch. We have so many guys that can come to these events, and it's not a pressure to sign up for us. It's $199. Come to a one-day, get the foundation, and then launch it yourself. No problem. That's great. We're enjoying it. We're having fun. We show you how to do it. If you want more, great. You can have more. But there's no hard sell on signing up with us coming to one of these events.
Honestly, it's fun for us because we get to see companies at all sorts of different levels, give them some insight on things that we did right and things that we did wrong. And everybody that comes to those, no matter the level that they're at, walks away with like, I never thought about it that way. I've never seen that.
This has turned into an event commercial. So go to ProServeAlliance.com, click on events. We got one coming up, so sign up for it. But all that to say, if you're implementing these processes, it's going to feel like, hey, I'm paying for the first month of this software. I need to go ahead and implement it. Great. Implementation doesn't mean you're starting it.
That's right.
You got to go through these steps, whether it's I'm starting a new division, I'm hiring a new employee, we're going to start doing estimates differently, I'm invoicing differently, I'm paying any of those changes that you're trying to do. We've laid out the process, plan it, prepare for it, and then roll it out.
That's right.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope to talk to you guys soon.
See you next time.
All right.